Okay, folks. I'm going to call the meeting of the Richmond City Council for Monday, July 14th, 2025 to order. May I have a motion on the minutes and the board and brief? Discussion, Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Worship. Just want to clarify the minutes of the last meeting.
That will come in number 6.
Number 6?
You're talking about the General
Regular
Purposes Committee minutes, which is number 6.
Okay, I thought it was, but it was past 6. Okay. All right, regular council. Okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, so all those in favor, any opposed, that is carried. Madam Clerk, any agenda additions or deletions?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have one agenda correction, and this is for item 14 on CNCL's page 6 and 7. And this is just a revised bylaw 10675 that has been provided to council and which is attached in an on-table staff memorandum. That's bylaw 10675 has been revised.
Okay, may I have a motion on the minutes or on the agenda with that change? Moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. So we start off with one presentation from Denise Huey from the Richmond Public Library Board and Susan Walters, the Chief Librarian. If you could come on forward. And we have your document and your materials you previously provided to us. So please go ahead.
Hello. My name is Denise Huey, and I'm the chair of the Richmond Public Library Board. Thank you for welcoming me and our Chief Librarian, Susan Walters, here tonight, as I'm pleased to share our copy of the 2024 annual report to the committee. Our library facilitates life-changing connections every day. Everyone is welcome, regardless of circumstance. Our goal is to help every library visitor find what they need and leave feeling inspired. Did you know that over 122,000 Richmond residents have a library card? That's over 58% of Richmond's population. Part of that number are the 1,400 children who signed up just in 2024 alone. Our library's collections continue to expand and grow to reflect the changing and evolving needs of our community. In 2024, Richmond residents embraced their fine-free cards and put them to work with over 2 million physical and almost 1 million digital checkouts. The Richmond Public Library has a long-standing history of collaborating with you at the city to better serve our community together. Our collaborative community services pop-ups earned you UBCM's Honorable Mention Award in 2024, and our library, BCLA's Building Better Communities Award. Highlighted in both our annual reports, respectively, the laudable pop-ups and our community services connectors programs have brought together 40 different services organizations and engaged with over 2,500 community members. We continue to provide opportunities for people to connect with library staff and local organizations, to learn from individuals sharing their lived experiences, to enjoy the celebrations of others' cultures, and to volunteer. We're grateful for the 162 volunteers in 2024 who generously gave of their time and expertise to support the enrichment and expansion of library programs and services. As like you here at the city, we at the library are especially cognizant of the unique needs of Richmond families and children, students, job-seeking adults, newcomers, seniors, and vulnerable populations. In our upcoming slideshow and in the booklet in front of you, you'll see that many of our programs are directed towards meeting the needs of these demographics. Thank you for letting us share this presentation of our most impactful accomplishments for 2024. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your ongoing support of Richmond's Public Library. Susan and I are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you very much for that very engaging presentation. We have a couple of questioners. Councillor Rao.
Yes. First of all, thank you for this very outstanding report and publication. And I want to ask you, do you share this booklet or this report with other libraries in Canada?
There we go. Through your worship to Councillor Rao, we do share it with other libraries, and it's posted on our website so that all in our community can check it out. We want to make sure that we're not sharing too many print copies, so mostly we share it digitally through links.
Very good. Yeah, I hope that there can be more exchanges, between libraries.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair. Thanks for the presentation and the report as well. It was filled with lots of great information, and you've touched on that. Just two quick questions. The first one is, when I look at the numbers and the physical and the digital assets that you have, is that growth kind of equally spread out? Or in my mind, I would think digital would be outpacing physical, and in a way, I hope not, because I'm old.
So through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, I can share that during the pandemic, we saw a huge climb in digital circulation. And at that point, we were allocating more resources towards digital because that was what the need was at the time. Since 2022, we have shifted that back to more of a 50-50 split between both print collections and digital collections. And what we're seeing is that the print collection circulation is climbing. So it's about 2/3 more than digital circulation. And that's because we have more people coming into the library, borrowing physical items. I do think that if we were to allocate more money towards digital, we would see a climb there as well. But we're recognizing the most important thing is for our community to come together and connect. And we do make sure that if someone has a purchase suggestion, whether it is for print or for digital, we do our very best to purchase that for our community.
Yeah, just one other question through the chair, and I will give you a plug for the digital, because my granddaughter got a reader and she's a member, so you can download books for kids appropriate age and everything, so that's fantastic. So I do want to compliment you too on the hub aspect of it, like the community hub aspect of it, and how like the pop-up libraries drive more people actually to the library as well eventually. So I think that's great. And I think just to confirm, when I look at all this stuff, if you could confirm it for me, hopefully, that the trend line in overall usage versus 50 years ago walking in through a library door, I would think the trend line, like you mentioned, over half the people in Richmond have a library card. So I would think the trend line is trending up in terms of overall engagement, whatever form it takes. Is that right?
Yeah, so through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, yes, it is, for sure. We're seeing that people are coming to connect. So whether they're coming to borrow a book, go to a program, or just to use the space, because as we develop homes in Richmond and all over the Lower Mainland, many of those spaces are a little bit smaller than they used to be. And if you have multiple people in a family, they're looking for space to come, find their own, meet with friends, meet with others. So we are seeing that people are using the library in many different ways for many different things than they used to. It's not just about books.
Right. Thank you very much.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of questions. First off, I'll get through all the Rhyme Time videos this summer. I've only watched a handful of them, but I know there's 19 or more out there now. The fine-free, I've learned that it is fine-free to a point, and then if your child or someone else misplaces a book and we just can't find it, eventually there's notification that your card gets put on hold or of some sort. Could you comment on what that looks like or how often that's happening?
Yeah, so through your worship to Councillor Wolf, it does happen. I myself have been the recipient of one of those emails, or one or two. So with our new borrowing, you can extend, so if you borrow something and there isn't a hold placed on it, it will automatically renew 2 times for you to be able to borrow that material. Once someone puts a hold on it, you're going to get that call back to bring the item back. If you don't bring an item back that has been called back or it's met its end of its circulation period, then you will start to get the notifications. They're friendly in nature to remind you to bring your items back so someone else can borrow them. At the very end of all of that, if something is lost, members of the public can always come in and have a conversation with staff. We recognize that things happen, but overall, materials are coming back. So the fear fear that was initially there with going fine free, that materials wouldn't come back to the library and people would just keep them in their homes is not proving to be true. Materials are being returned, so.
Great, yeah, I'll echo that. They are friendly reminders, and thankfully in our story, we did find it, so it did come back. My last question is in regards to the RPL to go. So I didn't get to see it. Apparently it was in the parade. It's at Salmon Fest, and Spark was maybe zipping around it. I didn't get to see either. Could you highlight, other than what's in here, that it did its opening event at King George Park, what are some of the other exciting sites for that?
Yeah. So through your worship to Councillor Wolf, RPL to go has been out at some events where we're doing story times. You can get a library card. You can borrow materials. We often have some fun handouts. We have the capability to be able to take some of our digital technology out into the community as well. And the goal of RPL to go isn't just to show up at large events, but it is to connect with community where they are, because we recognize that while we have 4 libraries and a pop-up library service in Hamilton, not everyone can always make it to one of those locations. It's not always easy or accessible if you happen to be an isolated senior without maybe access to transportation, or even just a mom with, 3 children trying to take the bus to get to the library. So our goal and intent with the service is to make sure that we have a schedule, and we're working on that right now, so that we'll start to have some regularity in where we are visiting in the community, and then you'll even be able to request for your hold to be picked up from one of those locations.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. May I have a motion to resolve in a committee of the whole to hear delegations on items on the agenda? All those in favor, opposed, carried. So are there any parties wishing to delegate to us on council? And this refers to items on the agenda. Yes, ma'am. Please come forward. So the procedure for any of you who are going to be presenting, I'll recognize you, and then come on down to the front, introduce yourselves, and you've got 5 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tracy Kaur, and I'm here tonight along with my Richmond Olympic Oval Board colleagues, Gina Fernandez, Bob Jackson, and Serge Sangera. We are authorized to speak tonight by our Oval Board Chair, Axel Hofbrender, who couldn't be with us tonight. We're speaking tonight on your agenda item 17, initiate a more accountable and contemporary structure for the Richmond Olympic Oval, and the motion for the 2026 cap to the city contribution. We want to begin by assuring Council that as the new Olympic Oval Board, we are committed to accountability to you, the shareholder, including a commitment to transparency, sound financial stewardship, and reducing the Oval's reliance on the city's financial support. First, regarding the Oval finances and the proposed 2026 funding cap. We acknowledge with appreciation the city's investment of $53 million over the past 15 years. With this investment, the Oval has been able to reinvest $35 million toward capital projects, in addition to maintaining a dedicated capital reserve fund currently sitting at $11 million and available to fund future capital projects, an achievement we believe may be unmatched by other city facilities. We also acknowledge the importance of the financial support the Oval receives each year from the Games Operating Trust. Their invaluable contribution recognizes the Oval's unique ability to deliver high-performance sports and enables the Oval to provide essential support to our Richmond athletes on their journey along the Olympic pathway. You will have seen in our recent annual report that the Oval's senior management and administrative structure was recently significantly streamlined. Of note, 2 high-cost positions were not replaced, reflecting our ongoing commitment to operational and fiscal efficiency. We continue to look for further opportunities to improve efficiency and reduce costs going forward. Just recently, in June 2025, the Oval staff shared our Q1 financial report showing favorable results in both revenue and expenses. Our Q2 report, which we will share with you in September, is expected to continue this positive trend. Based on this sort of proactive financial management and recent strong financial performance, we are pleased to report that the proposed 2.5 million cap to the city contribution for 2026 being considered tonight is not expected to negatively affect Oval service levels or overall Oval performance. Looking further ahead to 2027, we know that the city's asset, the physical Oval building, is aging. In 2027, we will be required to undertake a major multi-week shutdown to complete essential capital repairs. This shutdown will affect revenues and will also require a significant draw from the Oval's capital reserves. We will continue with proactive planning to best consider how to address this. Speaking now in relation to the Oval as a more accountable and contemporary structure, we want to assure you that the Oval is also in alignment with these objectives as well. Specifically, over the last year, the Oval launched many new community-focused initiatives. These include the cost-effective $55 a year Forever Young membership pass, providing weekly Oval access for individuals aged 55 and older for a full year. We collaborated with the Richmond Public Library Summer Reading Program, incorporating an important physical component into children's summer reading time. The Oval has also provided new programming for children with varying abilities, including sport climbing programs for neurodiverse children, as part of our commitment to provide diverse and inclusive services. And in response to ongoing high community demand, we maintain many of our popular signature programs, such as the Learn to Skate lessons and summer sport camps. Notably, last year, we hosted an inaugural Oval Community Day event, which welcomed more than 7,000 people for free, family-friendly activities on our new outdoor fields. Oval Community Day returns this Sunday, August 24th, and we take this opportunity to warmly invite Mayor and Council to join us on August 24th and celebrate Richmond's commitment to health and wellness together. With all of this, we are proud to share that in total, over 4,700 members, an annual increase of 14% over previous year, made a record-setting 1.5 million Oval visits this past year, and we know that approximately 80% of those visits were from Richmond residents. We also wanted to take this time to update Council that our Oval's Human Resources team recently completed collective bargaining on behalf of our fitness and operations leaders and fitness attendant staff, ensuring their wages and benefits are now well in line with similar positions within the City of Richmond.
Ma'am, could you wrap it up now? You're out of time.
Yeah. In all, in the last year, the Oval hosted over 84 events and training camps for a wide range of sports organizations, from local sports groups to national teams and everything in between. Events hosted at the Oval generated over $30 million to the Richmond economy. Whether training for a specific goal, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, or learning a new skill, the offerings at the Oval are valuable and essential to our Richmond community. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for your time and attention this evening.
All right. Thank you for that presentation. We have a comment or a question from Councillor Day.
First of all, thank you for the absolute fabulous job that this new board is doing. We've never seen this kind of information and transparency. Really appreciate it. My question is, one of the things that gets talked about all the time is GOT funding. What percentage of high-end athletes do you have to have, or do you have, that will still guarantee that or more than hopefully guarantee that the GOT funding will still come to the Oval?
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Day, I would be not best positioned to give you the specifics of that this evening, but could certainly get that to you from our high-performance sports leader.
Perfect. Maybe just a memo or letter to Council to let us know where we're at with that as we endeavor to make some decisions.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Hobbs.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. I will just say thanks for the presentation and for the information. My question was along the same lines as Councillor Day, so I'm not going to ask it because you just mentioned you could send it in a memo, and I'll be looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, both of you. Are there other parties who wish to delegate on an item on the agenda? Anyone here? Moved and seconded. All those in favor, post carried. That brings us to the consent agenda. The one item, the early council review process for the OCP plan amendment and rezoning application on number 3 road has been taken off the consent agenda. The highlights are as follows: receipt of committee minutes, then we have the Garden City Park Gathering Space Concept Plan and the contribution agreement, the Parks, Recreation and Culture Allocation Policy, the Community Wayfinding Strategy and Implementation Framework, the application to propose a new lounge area endorsement to a license for Deep Blue Distilleries Limited on Cedar Bridge Way, 2025 UBCM Community Excellence Award Program, the referral responses as to housing as a human right, development applications and building approvals, fees update, and the pilot program for on-demand irrevocable surety bonds. May I have a motion to adopt those by general consent? Moved and seconded. All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. That brings us to the item that was taken off the consent agenda, which is number 13. That came from Planning Committee. I'll go to the chair, Councillor Bill McNulty.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to take this off the agenda to make sure all of council had the opportunity to discuss it, because I think it's extremely critical. Where I have no problem with the process of an early review with staff, I think it's critical. But staff also brought forward a development which created a lot of controversy at the committee level. And it had a lot of feedback, and I'm sure other members of committee will want to talk about that. If I can just refer to it here, Your Worship. There were probably a dozen committee concerns. There's tremendous concerns from the public as a whole, getting lots of letters. And I guess my problem with this is the reason I don't support it is that when staff work with the developer and we have no idea what is going to happen when it comes back to committee on it. I think there were people around the table. We would then have to probably, because it's gone through a process, support what staff have come up with, as opposed to having input along the way. We've given our comments now. I don't think too many at committee, at least as I read, were very happy with the development at all. And I said it wasn't a slam dunk. It should go back. I wouldn't support it if it was on the table right now as a development. And we give sort of a false approval by pulling this along. And there are expectations of the developer and obviously tremendous investment in it. And if it comes back and we still don't want it, what happens then? We haven't done a good job. So that is why I wanted it off. Your Worship, on this particular one, there was everything from a big box, the internal amenities, the hallways, the design, the setbacks, the access, balconies, bridge, it's too tall, trees being removed. I mean, you may as well go back to square one when you get all that in a development. The idea that we're carrying it along is another issue. So anyhow, I'll let other members of council talk about it. I agree with the process. I support staff in going through the process. With this one, I have difficulty carrying this one along with so many errors, or not errors, issues that are brought up at this time. I'd like to see something. I'd like to know what I'm supporting along the way in this process that is good, that we would support. I'm for development and have no problem with that. But I don't want to go away now and say, well, we'll integrate all of those things. I want to know what it looks like now. So that's why I asked them to have it come off and have other members of committee discuss it. Thank you.
All right, before we go, we got a couple more speakers, but before we do that, I'd ask to go to staff, whether it's Mr. Craig or whoever. All right, to staff, tell us what this process is.
Thank you, and through your worship, this process is seeking council's early input on the proposed amendments and the OCP that is arising from the proposed rezoning application. What we are ultimately seeking as part of this report recommendation is direction to consider the proposed OCP amendment as part of the rezoning application. And staff will take any of the comments and feedback that have been provided by council to date and discuss that with the applicant with the intention of bringing forward a revised proposal to council that addresses the comments and concerns that have been raised.
All right, so if we pass this motion tonight, that means the OCP amendment and the rezoning can go together at the same time instead of one subsequent to the other.
Through your worship, correct. It ultimately means that staff have that direction to proceed with considering the rezoning subject to a full, complete technical review being considered.
All right, is there any reason that if we pass it and we say the process is okay and we give whatever comments we want, but we don't like it, we say we don't like it tonight, is there an obligation on council of any sort to then pass it and approve it in due course?
Through your worship, council is not considering any zoning bylaw amendments or OCP amendment changes at this time. The report recommendations ultimately do not fetter council's decision when a rezoning bylaw and OCP amendment is brought forward at a future date once that technical review has been completed.
So you'd go back to the applicants with the comments, and probably they're here tonight, and either come back with the same thing or adjust it accordingly, and it's up to council.
Through your worship, that's correct.
All right. Okay, Councillor McNulty.
I just have one more question. At what stage then do we hear from the public? Because we've already started to hear from the public before we even get going out of the gate. So when will staff or somebody or the developer even sit down with the public? At the end of the process or now?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, certainly as part of this application or part of bringing forward this early council input, we have heard from members of the community. What I would say is, as a result of what we have heard to date, should we get the direction to consider the application and the council's comments, we will certainly work with the applicant to make revisions to the proposal, at which time we would request that the applicant hold a public information meeting on the revised proposal before it is presented to council for full consideration of any rezoning bylaw or OCP amendment.
Okay, I'm not quite comfortable with that because wanting to talk about form and what have you, I will leave it with you. Let's try it and let's see it. But there's no guarantee at the end of the day. I would think, I'm not going to speak for a committee, that this will, as I said, be a slam dunk. Thank you.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair, thanks for the clarifying comments, Chair, and also I agree with pretty much all the comments that Councillor McNulty has previously made, so I'm not going to repeat all of those. But I do want to thank staff for the reports on this project, and I do like the process of having an early look, so to speak, at different things. But in a more global sense that impacts this project for me, I think it's really important that all projects, including this one, integrate into the surroundings that they are in a way that is, doesn't blow apart the whole neighborhood. And for this one, some of the comments that have been mentioned, things like setbacks, overall height, the idea of a courtyard in the middle pushes everything out. And so it ends up, for my mind, just being too high, too much in a relatively small lot. Densification is happening. I think everybody supports that to a degree. But the point is, I think things have to be developed in a way that integrates into communities, and that might involve some tiering. So the idea that you're going to have 3 stories, or in other projects, maybe 4 or 5, all in one block in the middle of an area, that might not work. And so I'm happy to look at it early, but I won't be supporting it at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess when we talk about early council review process, And if you wanted my comments right now, this is absolutely a no. So that's my comment overall, but I'm not going to vote for passing this motion. Whether we pass it connected to the OCP or any rezoning application, the fact that we're passing something is going to alarm the community of what's going on. As many councillors are, we're inundated with people from the neighborhood calling about this particular project. And I've spoken to several, and so my comments at a early review process are certainly no. And I don't think we should be dickering with the OCP and the rezoning if we've got, and we'll see what the vote turns out at the end of the day, where the council members are opposed to this. We're going to have to send this back. Staff's going to have to work with them and then bring something back. And you could do the early council review process at that particular time. But bringing something like this forward, I got to say, I will never support it. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was attending the planning committee meeting when this was discussed. I'm not a member on it, but I actually support the process that we're at this point. We haven't had too many of these early council review processes. You just have to look into the Richmond News online. They published a story on this July 3rd, and they had already heard from members of the community, and in that article it listed some of the concerns. But what was also nice in that Richmond News article is they did mention that this whole project proposal is not ready to be approved. They specifically said it's seeking early input. And I think that's what I am willing to give today. I did make some comments at planning. The only things I'll repeat are the fact that this is a 27-unit rental project. I think that's great. We could definitely use more rental units throughout the city, not just condensed in city center. This is 3 stories tall, and I asked questions about that 40-foot height and that it's similar to the top of a tall townhouse that's built on other arterial roads. The fact that it's a middle courtyard concept, I don't really like, especially because there's a lot of significant trees and not labeled significant trees on the property. 3 on site, 1 on a neighboring property that potentially would be impacted by this. Ideally, the courtyard would match the existing significant environmental features of the land and not put it over a sand bed and demolish everything else, because the building layout has very minor setbacks and then punches out to the sides, and that's where you're going to get some input from the direct neighbors for sure. That'll be a concern by that. I also would definitely like to see any new project built at a passive house standard or fully electrified and without Fortis gas lines running into it. Would probably be a little bit more affordable if you're not adding extra utilities that might not need to be in there. So those are my comments. I'll be supporting this process.
All right, do you want to move the motion then? Okay, so it's moved. All right, so it's moved and seconded. We'll go to Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I agree with the comments from Councillor Wolf. My understanding is that this is a process where we did consider the OCP amendment and the rezoning at the same time. They're getting feedback from council on what we think of the proposal so far, and then it'll come to us with the OCP and rezoning. And at that time, if people still don't like it, then it can be voted against or referred back at that time. So I don't really understand what the point of voting against this now would be, except that then it would just come forward with a separate OCP and a separate rezoning. It's still going to come forward, it just won't be at the same time. So there's some advantages to that. I don't know. But as far as I'm standing, I think this is just the opportunity to say what works about the project and what doesn't. For me, turning one single-family lot into 27 rental homes is a bonus, as we need as much rental housing as we can get. It's on the arterial. I just look in all the neighborhoods, my neighborhood included. Back in the 80s, 90s, and before that, we built apartment buildings everywhere, and there was 3-story apartments right next to single-family houses. But as I said at committee, because I did attend the committee, even though I'm not on the committee, what makes it work better is when it's seamlessly integrated into the neighborhood. And I think that the residents of the Maple Lane area have a lot of very valid concerns and concerns about pushing it through. So just, want to reiterate that nothing's being pushed through. We're just using this opportunity to give the feedback. And I think, as the Councillor Wolf said, the central courtyard is the biggest issue for me, having, especially because it's just going to be this dark, small square with building all around it. I think it's way better to put the housing all together on one side and save the area with the trees as the area for the courtyard play area. You could have a little fence if you want it to be fenced for little ones. But for me, I wouldn't want my kids playing in an isolated little dark box. I would prefer them to be able to hear other kids playing down the street, and then, oh, so-and-so's playing outside, and then you can go, it's more integrated into the neighborhood that way. And the intensity of the height difference between the 3-story and a 2-story home isn't going to be as pronounced because you've got a little bit of a buffer with the trees. So I'm really hoping that the development process, that they take that into consideration. That's pretty much my biggest concern with it. I don't see the height as a big issue as long as it's done right and it's set back with the trees, because 3-story townhouses versus 3-story apartments, 3-story apartments is very favorable in my opinion. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Councillor Day.
Why did we come up with the early council review process? It's because developments were taking far, far, far too long. And they would take years to come to council, and then in many cases, council would vote it down because we didn't like something significant about it. This is one of those situations where, and I actually made the motion for it, but I call it the sniff test, which is the early council review process, to streamline things and try to see if we can't move projects along. If something's an absolute no, let's not waste 2 years on it. This one, for me, is an absolute no. And the number one reason is the location of the building. This is a big box in the middle of the lot. And the setbacks are so minimal that it would just take over the lot. And this is right beside a single-family neighborhood. Now, where we've had densification and it's been successful, and I'll give you an example, Williams and number 3. Densification, 4 stories high, rental-only building, but it's orientated towards Williams Road. And so there is single-family homes on the other side of the fence, but they're not negatively at all impacted by that building. So this is good, it's not great. It's good that there's 27 rental units, but that is the only good thing about it, because this lot would be entirely leveled, and this is a really older home that has really significant trees. And as Councillor Wolf pointed out, if the design was made around what's already there, you could have a really special project. But this is just not good enough. And some of the arguments that I heard for it, I think it was Councillor Liu that said, well, this will prevent mossy yards and dark backyards if we were doing townhouses. But I feel that's exactly what's going to happen in this courtyard is, as Councillor Laura Galanders pointed out, it's just going to be a dark box that'll only see daylight for short periods of time. And we've heard loud and clear that the neighbors simply don't want this. Now, had we come to them with a project that was like most normal projects, where it's 3 stories high at the arterial road, and then it works down to 2 stories high at the back, and it ties in, it blends with the neighborhood, I'd be all over it. I'd be thrilled to pieces to get these 27 rental units. But because this is just wrong on so many levels, I don't see any point in continuing with this process with this project. It can't be fixed. It has to be completely thrown out and start all over again. And let's get it right the next time. So I don't want to vote to amend that we consider concurrently with a rezoning application. There's no point in going there. In my mind, you can bring this back in a year, and I'm still going to vote no. And I think most of council will. So why waste the developer's time? Let's get on with it. Let's say no to this today, and that's why it's off the consent agenda. And let's move on and get a proper project in that area, because it's a wonderful part of Richmond, and it's got a wonderful school, and there's parks nearby. Let's get it right. So I won't be supporting this because it's just wrong on so many levels.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. Following on to what Councillor Day said, yes, we've been looking at other projects over the years, and what has happened is a developer will come forward with a project that meets the criteria of the zoning for a spot. So, for example, we had a number of single-family homes over at Blundell and 2 Road. The developer came forward, he is allowed to build X number of townhouses, and a number of people on council said, well, wait a minute, maybe townhouses are too much or change to the neighborhood without actually giving enough homes, and so we'd be willing to think about a rental property that had even more housing because it would be useful to the neighborhood. But the developer had already done years of work on designing these townhomes. This process allows the developer to say, okay, we heard that you want some rental, we heard that you want more units, we're going to give you the example of what we're looking at now so that you can pre-approve it. I can guarantee you it wouldn't matter what the developer had brought for it. If they said they were bringing 10 townhomes or 27 rental apartments, it wouldn't make any difference. The neighbors would say, we don't want it. If they put in a big single-family home that is actually one of those multiplexes and had 6 units in it, the neighbors would probably say they didn't want it. There would still be the same citations of parking, everything else. Are we willing to look at this? I think we should be willing to look at this. There have been a lot of comments of stepping it back more. Right now, the drive aisle is on the north side, so it minimally impacts the northern single-family homes that abut it. Is there more of an opportunity to step back the building more so that it really doesn't impact the neighbors more than any single-family home would? I think there is. I think that there are some other opportunities, such as Councillor Hobbs mentioned. I think this project itself has some great things to it. 3 of the units are at grade. So if you're aging out in your neighborhood, you can stay in your neighborhood because you have units at grade. It's a short walk to Broadmoor. There's buses in the neighborhood. There's schools in the neighborhood. There's all kinds of things. So for whatever reason you need to not have stairs, life is good. We can work with the setbacks. I like the idea of this central courtyard. I've had other people talk to me about projects in Australia where the neighborhood is built around a central courtyard. So it's just like this project with parking underneath, a big slab. Now you've got this central courtyard for the community to come together, picnics, playground. It's a safe area for your kids. So instead of everybody having their own little piece of grass that the kids don't actually go out onto because it is wet and there's moss and your child is all by themselves and they don't actually hear the kid next door. So they all have a central area to come to. It's safe. Your neighbors know each other. You have a community. I think this sounds like a good idea. I think it's worth exploring. I also think it's worth listening to the neighborhood to have more setbacks or to explore what the setbacks should be to make it more appropriate for the neighborhood. But I think we've have a history of looking at a project and then saying, well, what about adding more density? Well, here's the opportunity to look at more density. We can fast track the rental opportunity here, make it affordable for the builder to make it, and make it then affordable for people to live in it. If that's not what we want, I have a question to staff. How many townhouses could they put on under the arterial road policy?
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, typically for a site size of this, you'd be looking at probably 5 or 6 units.
Okay, so 5 or 6 full-size townhomes that would not be, if you were to rent one of those townhomes, what would those rental rates be? 4,000 or 5,000 a month?
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, I wouldn't like to hazard a guess at that at this point in time, but they would not be a rental, what you would typically see as a rental rate for an apartment.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Au.
Yes, Your Worship, I'm going to support this proposal for the reason that, first of all, it's not a pre-approval of any project in particular. It's a process to streamline and to make things more faster and easier for all parties. And staff has made it very clear that on page 238, under the section of next steps, saying that the input provided by council will be used to inform the comprehensive and technical review of the application. So I think this is what we want to achieve, so that we can have projects being processed faster and people can have their inputs right at the first chance, so that there's not delays and so many hurdles be set. So I'm in full support of this proposal.
Yeah, from my point of view, we've heard from various councillors as to many of the issues, and I can't believe that an applicant is going to come forward with the proposal as we see it tonight because of all the negative comments. But I think the positive side of that is that that's an invaluable assistance to the applicant to kind of know at least some of the challenges with this particular application. If we vote against this, then the rezoning will come first. The applicant is going to drive that rezoning. Okay, so the rezoning is going to come first, then the OCP amendment is going to come after that. I just don't know what's to be gained by that. I reiterate, it's not going to go through by the sound of things the way it is presented now. But the motion is to that the OCP amendment be considered concurrently with rezoning application. Secondly, that staff work with the applicant to consider the comments provided by council as part of the comprehensive and technical review of the rezoning application. So they can go back to the drawing board knowing many of the comments that councillors have made, and they can talk to staff, they can talk to the council, they can come back with a much more acceptable product. And there is absolutely no reason that we will have to approve anything at a subsequent time unless we find it to be satisfactory. So I'm going to support this because as far as I'm concerned, procedurally, it makes sense to have the rezoning and the OCP amendment all at the same time and make sure that staff considers those comments with the applicant so that they're not just wasting their time, their money, and our time as well. So I will support it. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? It is carried with Councillors Day, McNulty, Heed, and Hobbs opposed. That brings us to the items which were always off the consent agenda. The first one comes from, I'm sorry? That's part of the consent agenda. Sorry, just a minute. The question has been raised as to when we're doing the committee minutes. The answer is that is the first item on the consent agenda. So it has been done. But I also remind council that
That's what I asked you.
Just a minute.
You told me to go, it'll be done on number 6. If you recall.
all we are doing with the committee minutes is to receive them for information.
I'd like to correct them.
Well, okay, if you want to make a comment, that's fine, we'll let you make a comment, but there's not going to be any resolution following that. The General Purposes Committee adopts its own minutes. So, Councillor McNulty, you want to make mention of something on the consent agenda under committee minutes?
Well, I got the wrong advice, Your Worship, if you have said we could make them, but I will. The General Purposes Committee that was held on July 7th, if you recall, you've chaired it, there was a motion on the floor. It's item number 2 with regard to the Olympic Oval. Item number 1 was passed. Item number 2 was put on the floor. Then a amendment was made to it. And then I made an amendment to the amendment, not only on the amendment, but the original motion. And then I see in the committee minutes that my motion's there, which I thank clerk for, but the other motion is there as well. And I thought an amendment overshot an amendment and the original motion. So that is my question. 2A is there. It should not be because that was the original motion. And it was amended to amend, and 2B was the amendment on that. So there only should be one motion.
We will ask Madam Clerk before the General Purposes Committee meeting next week to review this on the tape. But I can tell you, my recollection and certainly my understanding at the meeting is that what you see in front of you is accurate, that the amendment to the amendment was to add to what was on the floor, not to take what was on the floor off the floor.
Okay. All right. To me, it was to replace it, but there are other meetings where other motions can be made. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Number 16 is supporting food security organizations through the city agriculture-related grants program. And the General Purposes Committee recommendation is that option 3 be adopted, and that's the one titled Supporting Food Security Organizations Through the City Agricultural Grant-Related Programs, dated June 16, 2025. From the Director of Parks Services be approved and that the matter be reviewed after the 2026 budget, and I would so move. All right, now the nub of option 3 is on Council page 284, and it's a reorganization of some of the grant money. And what this one, option 3, says is that the Supporting Food Security through Community-Driven Events Grant be discontinued, that the Parks, Recreation, and Community Events Grant remain unaltered, and that the Environmental Enhancement Grant be increased by $30,000 to $268,086 based on the 2025 budget, funded by gaming revenue, and this funding source is consistent with all the other grants programs. So that was the consensus of the committee, and so others can weigh in as to what their position is. I'm not seeing any. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. I voted against this in committee, and I'll vote against it now. So what we were finding is we were supporting groups to put on farmers markets and other things. What it was turning out is that the people putting on the farmers market didn't actually need our funding in order to make the farmers market viable. They were viable without our support. So basically, they were just banking the money that we were giving them. So we thought that maybe there should be a different way of giving out city money and to support community activities. And so the option 1 is the reallocation of existing funding into a different thing in order to support groups that actually need it in order to make their event feasible. That's what we were looking to do. Changing it to option 3 doesn't change what we're actually doing. It continues to make the groups that were receiving funding that didn't need it eligible to continue receiving funding. So I will vote against that.
Councillor Wolf.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I was in support of it, general purposes, and I will be again tonight. I'll just briefly highlight why I support option 3, which was not the staff recommended option, but some of us around the table saw that having new funding for the existing 2 grant programs, so the Environmental Enhancement Grant and the Parks, Rec, and Community Events Grant. So those two have been, well, the environmental enhancement grant is actually fairly new. It's only a few years, but we've seen it, the pickup is there. And so what we're looking at today is adding to the scope of the environmental enhancement, and you can look into the fine details here of what staff expect those grants to look like, or what those projects or outcomes are expected to do for the city. And so what we're doing is we're looping in right now there's only 4 societies that do food security related work in the city that are tested and are identified as likely to apply for the maximum $5,000 in this budget program. It's not that they don't need it or don't do good with it. They do. That's why they exist. That's why they're made up of volunteers and dedicated staff at a minimal level. Many of these rely on some form of municipal grants. Otherwise, they'd close up, and then we would have maybe new startups, if that, going forward. So it's tough when you're working in the nonprofit sector. You don't necessarily have predictable funding. What we're doing today is helping make it predictable. And so I'm hoping that we stay with there's enough support to bring this forward, because it does support the official community plan that we're working through right now and going to probably approve by the end of this year. There's a major component of that relates to environmental enhancement and food security. And I do, or we were informed at committee that this is going to have some impact on the gaming revenue, which is a reducing amount, pretty much year by year. But we're going to be looking at that at the next year's process for all of our grants. How can we best allocate it? What are the key priorities? So at this stage, it's a little bit ahead of the next round of successful grant applications, but in our council term goals, our existing strategies for the city, I think this option 3 allows us to do more with that. So thanks.
Councillor Day.
I'm mystified what Councillor Liu is talking about, because if you go to the actual guidelines on page 287 and 288, these 3 grants that we've been issuing out over the supporting food security through community-driven events grant, the environmental enhancement grant, and the park recreation and community events grant are for nonprofit organizations not eligible to apply for any of the other grants. And then if you go to eligibility on page 288, it says registered and agricultural nonprofit societies with a minimum of 5 years demonstrated proven experience whom focus on food access and food security activities are eligible for a $5,000 environmental enhancement grant. And these groups include food growers, producers, community organization whom operate farm markets and promote food security. They seem like a pretty needy group of people to me. And this also enables local food producers to grow, distribute, or sell produce affordably. Increasing the financing, the budget to $30,000 is less than a drop in the bucket to the city of Richmond. So I wholeheartedly support option 3, because anytime we can help these organizations bring their food to the public, it's a win-win situation for absolutely everyone. And I'm mystified why anybody wouldn't support it. So I will be supporting this motion.
Councillor McNulty.
Thank you, Worship. I'll be quick on this one. This is just a small amount in the overall picture, as Councillor Day said, to follow one of our goals with agriculture, really behind agriculture. $30,000 is not a lot of money, but more importantly, it stimulates more groups to get involved. And the one thing that is really, we hit on the groups, but if you look in there in the terms of reference, individuals can get involved. We encourage people. I look at the thousands of dollars we put towards community gardens, and we're worried about $30,000 to go ahead. To me, this is a no-brainer. It supports all the goals of agriculture. We continue more. As we know in the world today, food production is a problem. We can't count on everything from the south, even though we bring in 85% of all the food to Canada, and only 15% is grown here. So I'll support 100%. Thank you.
Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I will also be supporting the option 3. To me, it was also a no-brainer, simply because we see so many applications, and there's always way more applications than we have money for, and it's always heartbreaking to have to turn them down. And in order to do option 1, we would have had to take 30,000 out of the Parks, Rec, and Community Events grant and put it over to the other one. But we don't even know if $30,000 worth of people are going to be eligible. So by doing option 3, we're keeping the Parks, Rec, and Community Events grant budget the same. We know there's a need for it, and we're adding this other one, and then people have to fit all the criteria in order to get it. So it's not that we even are necessarily going to max it out. And it makes sense to me why staff recommended option 1, because they're being fiscally responsible and where the source of the funding comes from, which is the gaming revenue, which they know is reducing. And that's why the other part of the motion is to be reviewing it during the 2026 budget, because we have to figure out another more sustainable long-term funding for all of the need that we have. So I'll definitely be supporting what's on the floor. Thanks.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may, according to the report, a review of each of the organization's year-end financial statements in 2023 and 2024 showed that the SFS grant recipients showed an operating surplus. With the exception of the Kwantlen Farmers Market Society, their surplus was greater than the value of the grant received. So 2 years in a row, people are banking it. It's not suggesting they couldn't use the money some other way, but they ended up with a surplus. They didn't actually need it. They're eligible. If we rework this, other people will be eligible to receive it, including the Kwantlen Farmers Market Society that does need it, to be able to put forward events and programs that meet the mandate of what's actually happening here. And I thought that's what our goal was to do, is to relook at the program to make it better. And that's what option 1 does. It makes the program better.
All right, with that, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried with Councillors Au, Liu, and Hobbs opposed. Then there's a subsequent part of the motion, which just is administrative. It's the name of the Environmental Enhancement Grant be changed to the Environmental Enhancement and Food Security Grant to reflect the revisions to the grant program as per option 3 as outlined in the staff report, and I would so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that part? All those in favor? Anybody opposed? It's carried with Councillor Liu opposed. The other item that is on the consent agenda, off the consent agenda, thank you, is talking about the Richmond Olympic Oval, and from General Purposes Committee meeting, the recommendation is that the maximum annual contribution to the Oval Corporation for 2026 be limited to $2.5 million, and I would so move.
Second.
We had a very long and very interesting and detailed discussion about the entire Richmond Olympic Oval, and basically there were there was number 2 and number 3 that were passed, basically talking about taking another look at the vision and the organization and the administration of the Oval, and that was put in staff's hands as a result of the votes at committee. So what remains now is simply that this maximum amount of the subsidy be limited to $2.5 million. Now, that's a reduction from what it was, but we've heard from the Oval people, and it sounds like for this year, they've had a good year, and it will not be a detriment to them, but I just remind that it's only for 2026. Hopefully, by the time we have to consider it further for a subsequent year, we'll have the results of the reviews, and we'll have a much more clear idea of where we are going. So I was opposed to this at committee, but I will support it now. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. And I'd like to thank the members of the board for coming forward and informing us that what their needs actually are. It seemed to me that it was putting the cart before the horse to define the budget before we had heard about what the actual needs were. In the same meeting, earlier this week, or last week, we had asked for a detailed description of what the vision, the plans, the operating plans were for the coming year. And so that would put us in a better position to understand what kind of funding is needed to support that kind of activity. Just like we get the requests from the library every year, we get the requests from the Gateway Theatre and from the other groups that get supported. They tell us what they're doing first, and then they ask for money instead of it going the other way around. So now that we've heard that the funding is what they need, then I'm willing to support it. But I wasn't willing to support it before we had heard from the board and understood what we were going to make them do instead of just have them make do.
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. We heard loud and clear from previous reports from the Oval that they were not going to be replacing the CAO and they're not going to be replacing the manager. And I can't thank the board for the incredible work that they've done. It's just in the last year and a half, it's stunning the difference that we've seen between the old situation and the new situation. And I really want to thank you for the presentation today, because when you told me about the $50 fee for seniors, I was just giddy because I'd been asking that for like 5 years. And I'm so happy to hear that those programs are at the Oval, because it's like a community center on steroids. I mean, it's a beautiful, wonderful, big facility, and we want to make sure that everyone has access to it. And sometimes people have limited funds, and I'm really, really, really pleased to hear that you're dealing with that. And I'm also, I appreciate that this council has given $53 million over the last 15 years to the Oval, but we know that reducing this funding will not in any way affect the 20% or so high-performance athletes that are in there, and that means that won't affect the GOT funding either. So the council had to take a bold move, replacing the board. We had to take a bold move to make this decision to bring this forward, and I thank Councillor Heed for putting the motion in to begin with. He made us think, what can we do? We drew a line in the sand and we came up with an idea, and now we're all working together, and I'm really proud of that. So as we go forward with the review and we look and examine the operation of the Oval, I'm excited to see what's coming, and I'm not sure what will come, but whatever it is will be well thought out, well planned, and well researched. So thank you once again, and I will be supporting this motion.
Yeah, just a final note. I think I talked about 2.5 for this year. It was 2.5 for next year. So with that, we're going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Brings us to public announcements. Got lots of paper here. Bear with me. First of all, we received an award as a city. It's a District Energy Award. We're pleased to announce that the City Centre District Energy Utility has been awarded the 2025 Energy Project of the Year Award for Canada by the International Association of Energy Engineers. The association is a nonprofit group of 18,000 energy industry members worldwide. It recognizes the energy projects that improve efficiency, reduce greenhouse gases, and contribute to global efforts to achieve net zero emissions. The City Centre District Energy Utility will provide efficient, low-carbon energy to over 170 residential and mixed-use commercial sites by 2050 and help to reduce over 1 million tons of carbon emissions. So congratulations to the Lulu Island Energy Company for this achievement. This, in fact, is the 22nd award it has received since being created by City Council in 2013. Then we have fall registration, and that begins online on Tuesday, July 15th at 8 p.m. Popular programs fill up quickly, so a reminder for anyone planning to register to make sure they sign up ahead of time for two-factor authentication in My Richmond. Program and registration details are online at the city's website /register. Then we have the Nations Cup. This is an annual event. It's the 44th annual Nations Cup soccer tournament. It kicks off at Huboy Park on Friday, July 18th. We have over 1,400 athletes will compete over the weekend on teams representing countries from around the world in one of local soccer's most prestigious tournaments. Spectator participation is free, so if you want more information on that, go to thenationcup.com. And finally, we have the Pride Walk. The third annual Pride Walk takes place on Saturday, July 26th at 11 a.m., and it leaves from Imperial Landing Park in Steveston. This is a family and pet-friendly event to celebrate Richmond's diversity and support the two SLGBTQIA plus individuals and their allies in our community. Along with the walk, there will be music, community booths, face painting, bubbles, and more. So look for details on the city website. Madam Clerk, Development Permit Panel.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's
Just a minute. Councillor Wolf.
Yes, I'd just like to add one quick public announcement. Cameron Rogers, our Olympian, just beat her own record. So the new national hammer throw record is 78.88 meters, and she did it on July 5th.
Yeah, well, just imagine that. It's great. It's another feather in the cap for a Richmond athlete. All right, Development Permit Panel.
Thank you, Worship. There is one recommendation, and that the minutes of the Development Permit Panel meeting held on June 25th, 2025 be received for information.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. And then we have public delegations on non-agenda items. May I have a motion to resolve in a committee of the whole to hear delegations on non-agenda items? All those in favor, opposed, carried. We have two such delegations. Firstly, we have Kathy Yan to present on preparing Richmond for extreme weather events and dike infrastructure resilience. Do you want to come forward? Please come forward, have a seat, introduce yourself, and you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, councillors, for listening to me tonight. My name is Kathy, and I would first like to thank the city for all of the work that they're doing on sustainability. I sit on the Advisory Committee on the Environment, so I have the privilege of being able to engage on some of these issues. Tonight, I speak as one of approximately 200 Richmond residents who have signed onto West Coast Environmental Law's campaign, which asks two fundamental questions. First, how much is climate adaptation going to cost us? And second, who will pay for it? Like many of you, I'm a longtime resident of Richmond, and since elementary school, I've heard about flooding in this amorphous sense, but it really didn't hit home for me until 2021, when I saw Blundell Road be turned into basically a river. And then last fall, it was Mineru Boulevard's turn to flood. And so it's clear to me that extreme weather events are increasing in both frequency and intensity, and that we need to adapt our infrastructure accordingly. From what I understand, climate adaptation efforts, including dike upgrades, are funded through a combination of federal and provincial grants, as well as municipal taxpayer dollars. However, we must consider whether this is a sustainable and sufficient solution in the long term, and whether reliance on higher levels of government actually opens us to vulnerabilities. We have to ask ourselves, to what extent must taxation increase in the next 10, 50, 100 years to ensure the resiliency of our community? And are Richmond residents able and willing to bear that cost? And just as critically, is it fair to ask them to bear that cost? To answer these questions, I ask that Council consider and pass the motion that's in the agenda, which asks for an examination of Richmond's climate risks, the costs of upgrading critical infrastructure to meet adaptation needs, and how those costs may be recouped, including potentially through legal frameworks outlined by West Coast Environmental Law that is currently being supported by 11 municipalities across BC. With that, I'd like to thank you all for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm suggesting that we would refer that. So that's moved and seconded. The referral is on the floor. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much, ma'am. Staff will be considering that along with the council. I'm sorry? Oh, you were opposed. Okay, that's fine. So that was carried with Councillor Liu opposed. Next delegation Jerome Dickey to present a thank you card to council regarding Bark Park. Don't stop with Bark Park. There's lots of thank you cards that we want. Mr. Dickey. If you want to introduce yourselves, please.
Jerome Dickey, and this is Lawrence Lee. 9280 Glen Ellen Drive, Richmond. And I want to thank others who are joining tonight and online as well. Tonight I'm here to raise questions. I'm not here to raise questions or challenge your thinking as I might otherwise often do. Tonight we're here to say thank you. Thank you to council and city staff. After a long period of construction and safety upgrades, Richmond's beloved dog park reopened, and the community came together to celebrate in the best way possible. Bark Park Reconnect on Saturday, May 31st this year was more than just a reopening event. It was a joyful expression of gratitude, inclusion, and community pride. The upgrades of the park, including new fences, secure gates, and separated multi-use path for cyclists, were much needed changes to address past safety concerns and conflicts between off-leash dogs and cyclists. As the park neared completion, the idea emerged to host an event that would not only mark the improvements, but also help the community back together, bring them back together after a period of disruption. Planning began just weeks before the event, guided by a simple vision. Make it inclusive, low-key, and fun for both humans and dogs. Volunteers and local businesses stepped up with enthusiasm and support. Local chocolate shop, Sinfully the Best, Larry right here, donated delicious shortbread cookies, while Bodega Pets and Lovely Lou's, Dana from Lovely Lou's as well, assembled generous raffle baskets. These small acts of generosity helped create a festive atmosphere and reminded everyone of the strength of local connections. One of the surprise hits of the day was the photo dog booth put together by my wife Diana right behind me here, where people dressed their dogs in silly costumes and gathered for laughs, snapshots, and memories. Throughout this event, guests signed a large thank you card to the City of Richmond. Dozens of heartfelt notes expressed appreciation for the improved safety and the renewed sense of connection the park now offers. The atmosphere was filled with joy, and even passers-by who hadn't known about the event decided to stay and join in. Professional photographer Tommy, owner of Kind Photos YVR, volunteered his time to capture the day, and the photos reflected what words alone couldn't capture: laughter, connection, and the special bond between people and pets. Under sunny skies, more than 80 attendees mingled, played, and reconnected with neighbors, making it a truly memorable day. What made Bark Park Reconnect special wasn't just the upgrade infrastructure. It was a spirit of togetherness. The event reminded everyone that parks are more than green spaces. There are places where community is built and where everyone, two-legged and four-legged, belongs. Thank you to everyone who made Bark Park Reconnect a success. With thoughtful planning, generous hearts, and a love for our shared spaces, we created something beautiful together. We would like to provide you with a thank you card from this event, and Larry will provide you a token of our appreciation from Sinfully the Best. So I've got a card here to present to you.
Thank you. If we could have Madam Clerk, if you could get that card. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate the comments, and
So just your card looks like. So that's signed by all the residents.
we got, thank you, Mr. Dickey. We've got a couple of questions here. Councillor Hobbs.
Thanks, and through the chair, thanks for coming and delegating on this. I happened to be riding through there last weekend on the correct path, and it was pretty spectacular, I have to say. The fencing was really well done. I do have a question for you too. One of the things that really impressed me was kind of the gate boxes, I'll call them that, at both the east and the west end. And I took my bike through that and I walked on the walking path next to the river. But do you know where that idea came from? And because it seems very effective for me, not just for getting people off their bikes, but also for people, giving them the opportunity to leash up their dog, for instance, because dogs don't always do what we want.
Yep.
And so it's effective in two ways, I thought. And do you know where that came from? And
No.
I imagine you think it's very successful.
City staff, that was their design, they came up with that, and that's actually works really well, and it's a great design to see, so got to give them credit.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'll just make one last comment about city staff and the community. I thought it was a great example of coming together, as you mentioned, working together. And I think it's, I do want to really just mention staff too, because it was kind of a second and even third and maybe even fourth revisiting of an issue to get it right. And I think Councillor Wolf brought forward the idea of putting it to the north, and that was good.
This is for questions.
Yes, thanks. That's it.
Councillor Day.
Hi, well, thank you so much for coming forward, and I'm just so excited to see a successful project that was a complete collaboration. Have the dog walkers forgiven us for how long it took us to get to this point? I can imagine they were wondering if we were ever going to get it done. What I find ironic, and correct me if I'm wrong, we brought the community together by putting up a fence, you know?
Yeah.
Ironically, and is that, I guess I know that the dog folks are happy because they can safely run their dogs. What have you experienced, what kind of reaction from the cyclists?
I think the cyclists are, from what I've seen, probably like it better because now they don't have to slow down and worry about obstacles in their way, if you want. They can ride free down that path and not feel there's any dangers involved. So I would think if you talk to them, they would probably appreciate what they've got.
And it's interesting when you look at the bike path, the bike map.
Is there a question?
Yes. Were you, as dog walkers, aware that the official cycling map for Richmond, which showed the cycling through the dog park, at any point did you notice that it didn't say you are entering an off-leash dog area?
No.
Whoops.
So hopefully in future, that'll be upgraded now with the path and that, show that on there. Because I think it's a great opportunity to showcase the community to other communities. I think I've noticed more people coming from other communities when I talk to people. And so, it's attracting people into our community as well. I think that's good for business and everybody else it's almost another tourist draw, if you want, in a way, for our community as well.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, both of you. All those in favor and the opposed, that's carried. And we are now adjourned. Thank you.